this video, I'm going to give you the complete guide to grading sports cards. So stay to the end. I will give you access to the Google Doc. Grading sports cards single-handedly changed my life. It paid for my college and it helped me never get a job in corporate America, and it is the best way, the quickest, the fastest, the easiest, the simplest way to make an income. This is why grading sports cards is so powerful if you do it correctly. Hi, my name is Eric Michael. I've sold over $5 million in sports cards pretty profitably, and like I just said, sports cards changed my life. And about 4 years ago, I started helping people get into the world of sports cards because it changed my life and I feel a need to give back. I love teaching it, and I truly do think it is the simplest way to make an income online. And the best part, it's actually fun. But what I did is I put together a video training on my computer with a step-by-step Google Doc. But before I go into that, I want to explain to you why grading sports cards is such a marvelous thing. So if you guys have ever played poker before, poker, the card game like Texas Hold'em, is a game of making more right decisions than wrong decisions, right? So there are professional poker players because you could be good. It's a game of skill. However, as you would know, in the game of poker, you could make a right decision and still be wrong and lose money. You can make a wrong decision and still make money, but it's about maximizing your gains and minimizing your losses. So when you're in a bad situation, you're losing a little bit. When you're in a great situation, you're good at maximizing the amount of money you're able to take from the table. So sports cards are similar in that aspect, where it's just the math game. It's just a game you're playing over and over and over again. If you do it right, it turns into just a great math game. So let me go to my iPad here and check this out. So this is a card of Jackson Holliday, okay? And if you look at the top there, you can see a card that's raw. What raw means, it's not graded. Sells for about $14. A 10's about $70 to $76. And a 9 is about $26, okay? And I'm going to explain this to you and why this is so powerful, right? So let's take this card of Mr. Jackson Holliday, right? And we just discovered that raw equals, right, about, call it $14. A 9 equals about, what was it, like 26. And a 10 equals about, call it 75, right? Why is this so powerful? Okay. Well, if you follow what I'm about to show you on my computer, you'll be able to grade a 10 about 60 to 70% of the time. And when I say 10, I'm referring to a PSA 10. There's multiple different grading companies that are pretty decent, but PSA is the number one grading company for the most part, and that's probably where you're going to want to be sending your cards, right? So, right, if you do things right, you'll grade about 60% of your cards will get a PSA 10, okay? If you know how to properly evaluate the corners, the edges, the centering, the surface, you're buying the right types of cards, which I have other trainings on that, right? But check this out. So it's going to cost you roughly about $20 to get a card graded, okay? So why is this important? Well, if you break down the math, right, and let's say 40% of the time you're getting a 9 and 60% of the time you're getting a 10. Well, if this card grades a 9, you are going to spend $14 for the card, okay, plus a $20 grading cost. So you're into it for about $34. And if you gets a 9, right, a 9 is $26, you're going to lose about $8, right? If this card grades a 9, congratulations, you lost $8. However, if this card grades a 10, well, you bought the card for $14 and you spent $20 to get it graded, so you're into it for $34. And a 10 is about $75, right? So what this means is you are going to make, what's the math there? 41. So you're going to make about $41. Now, this is why grading sports cards is so powerful, okay? 40% of the time, you're losing $8. 60% of the time, you're making $41. And also, if you're doing things right and you're buying the right cards at the right time, like I'm using Jackson Holliday as an example here because I think is a good buy right now, this $41, when you go and sell it, it'll hopefully appreciate to 45, 50, or $55. You'll get a nice 10 to 20% increase. That's how grading sports cards works, and that's why it's such a powerful game. However, I am keeping it as simple and basic as possible. There's a bunch of things you need to know how to do, like evaluate the condition, the corners, the edges, the centering, the surface, the autograph if you're getting the autograph graded, knowing how to buy cards low at their low point and selling them at their high point. A common mistake I see people make is buying cards while they're at their peak. They get them back from grading, but they've dropped 30, 40% in value, right? If you're going to be sending a card to get graded, and it's going to take about a month or 2 months to get back to you, you want to be buying an asset that has a high chance of appreciating and not depreciating. However, this game, right, lose $8 40% of the time, or make $41 60% of the time. This is why grading sports cards is so powerful if you do it correctly. But hopefully this math makes sense. Let me jump to my computer, and I'm going to share with you a Google Doc and step-by-step the complete guide to grading sports cards. And if you stay to the end, I will give you access to the Google Doc. Let's jump to my computer. All right, so this is the complete guide how to maximize your profits when it comes to card grading. All right, so for beginners, the purpose of grading, right, is you're sending a card in to a company. They're assessing it on its condition, and if the condition is good, they'll give it a high grade, which means you will make money if the card grades highly. Now, the top grading companies are these: PSA, Beckett, and SGC. But really, the best one is PSA for the most part. This is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. The downside is it takes a little bit longer for these cards to get back to you. Beckett used to be top tier, but it kind of fell off to second tier. And SGC is good with vintage. With modern cards, it's okay. But in this, for the most part, I'm talking about vintage cards here, right? So, the way grading goes, right, there's a grading scale. So PSA and all of these have a scale of 1 to 10. However, it's a little bit different with each grading company. So let me show you here for a second. So if we look here, right, a PSA 10, I don't know, Pokemon card, right? And then if we go to eBay and we type in a Beckett 9.5 something, so BGS 9.5, you'll see this Beckett 9.5 has something called subgrades on it, right? So subgrades are like the grades that culminate to make the big grade right here. PSA, for example, doesn't have subgrades as you see. It's just a grade. That's it. It's just a grade. And people like this subgrades, but like I said, Beckett kind of fell off second tier in recent, 2 years. So, but that's the difference between Beckett and PSA. And then you have SGC, which SGC has no subgrades, but the difference between PSA, Beckett, and SGC, so this is a little confusing here, but SGC has a 9.5 with no subgrades. Beckett has a 9.5 with no subgrades. PSA, there is no 9.5. It only goes from PSA 9 to PSA 10. Pretty straightforward. So that's kind of the grading scale and how it goes. And so I have a lot of trainings on this, and I'm not going to go too far into it because this video will take way too long. But these are the 4 big pieces of criteria when it comes to grading cards. Okay, you have the corners, the edges, the surface, and the centering. These are the big 4. This is what is going to make or break. And step number 2 here is the most important part of this whole entire thing. This is a skill, like being able to go on eBay and let's say you're searching for, I don't know, I think CJ Stroud's a pretty good buy right now, right? So searching for CJ Stroud and being able to determine, okay, let's take a look at this card and see okay, is the centering good? Actually, the centering is pretty good. The edges, or the top and bottom centering is also good. So this card actually looks pretty good. And there's a bunch of little hacks. What you could do is look at the seller's other items, and you can see, does he only have, so this is kind of alarming, right? All the other cards are graded except for this one. There could be something wrong with it. But being able to look at the corners, edges, centering, and surface, this is a skill that you develop over time, and it's a skill that can print you money once you get good. It took me a long time to get good at being able to evaluate the corners, edges, centering, and surface. However, once you do, and you get good at it, it's never going to be perfect, But once you're good, about 60 to 70% of the cards you send in to grade are going to 10. And as you know, if a card grades a 10, you're going to about double to triple your money. But if it doesn't grade a 10, you'll lose about 10 to 20%. So it's a very good game. It's a math game at the end of the day. But step number 2 is extremely important here. Extremely important. Step number 3, I don't know that too much about this stuff because I don't personally clean my cards. I have someone else that's done it for me for years. But this is some stuff that you might want to use or buy if you're doing it yourself. I actually do suggest doing it yourself for the most part because it does go quicker. You control everything. And these are just some simple things that you may want to use if you're prepping cards. And also there's something else that's good called Kurt's Card Care. A lot of our students use this. And this is his Instagram. And he's always talking about grading cards. He has a nice little kit that I'm sure is right over here. And you could buy a kit and it helps you clean cards. So you could also use that. So that's step number 3, right? What you're doing is you're prepping the cards and cleaning them. And this is also extremely important. This is pretty general. But selecting the right cards to grade, right? For the most part, you want to be grading rookies and stars. Especially stars like this combined. Rookies of stars. That's for the most part what you want to be grading because when you're sending a card in for grading and it grades a 10, well, guess what? You're usually going to be sending it to someone who's collecting that player, right? For example, this card of CJ Stroud, if you buy this and it grades a 10, if you go and sell that card, chances are you're selling it to someone with the mindset of, I think CJ Stroud's a good player, so I'm going to buy him and hold him for the long term. People that are long-term investing in players, they want rookies, right? That's what they want because rookie cards hold the most value. And from your end, when you're buying and grading cards, what happens is you get a much better bang for your buck. So a 2024 second-year CJ Stroud but a second-year CJ Stroud card, you're not going to get the same multiplier from raw to it grading a 10 than a rookie card because it's not as desirable, right? Rookie cards are more desirable. Also, market trends, right? Buying, if you've ever heard me talk about this stuff, right? You want to be buying in the offseason, buying low, selling into the season, selling into the hype. I'll go into that a little bit more. And the condition of quality, obviously, that kind of goes hand in hand with what I talked about over here. Choosing the grading company. So I put the different grading companies here and kind of what they're known for. But to be honest with you, PSA is going to get you the best bang for your buck, generally speaking. It's kind of sad what happened to Beckett, honestly. I like sending cards to Beckett more back in the day. But if you look here, so check this out. Check this out. So if we go to Market Movers, right? Market Movers is a good kind of place where you can look at comps and look at trends of cards, just to show you how much Beckett has really fallen off, right? If we take a Wembanyama Prism Silver 9.5, a Beckett 9.5, and then also we take a PSA 10. So if we compare these two, and what you could also do is we'll add an SGC here, SGC 10. So we can compare all these cards, and you can see, it's a little messy, but you can see this blue line, this light blue line at the top is a PSA 10. Okay, this bold blue line is an SGC 10, and the yellow line is I'm wrong. This bold blue line is a Beckett 9.5, and the SGC line is the yellow. So you can see the colors right down here. Or you can just look at these numbers right here, right? So the last sale, a PSA 10 at $750, SGC 10 at $675, and Beckett, a 9.5 at $468. And back in the day, before the pandemic, a Beckett 9.5 actually used to outsell or sell for the same as a PSA 10. And these cards would come back to you much easier or much quicker. The cards were easier to grade. But this is not the case anymore. So Beckett kind of fell off. But for subgrades and some higher end cards, Beckett could be better. But for the most part of what I'm talking about here, you're probably not going to want to use Beckett. Only time you're going to want to use SGC, I would say, if you're broke and you need quicker turnaround times. You could just get cards back much faster, much quicker, and you'll make a little bit less. But because you're getting the cards back much faster, you could turn these cards over more faster, make quicker money to get your bankroll up, to eventually send a PSA that has longer times. So that's step number 5. Number 6, right? Submitting your cards for grading. So I'm not going to go too far into this, but if you're submitting cards for grading, right, you don't just mail cards to the grading companies, right? If you go to the PSA website, right? PSA grading service. You actually have to like make an account and submit your cards, and it's pretty straightforward, right? You can build your card submission. They walk you through exactly how to do it better than I would ever be able to do it, but that's how to do it. And you have to submit every card, exactly what you're submitting, and then it'll upload into your account, and then you could see it kind of step by step. Like PSA has multiple steps in their grading process. You can see it kind of go along, kind of like Domino's, right? You can see it like baking in the oven, and then you can see it out of the oven, and then your driver's on the way. Same thing with PSA. Interpreting your grades and the next steps. So, right, when you get your cards back, you want to be able to know what to do with them, right? So sometimes you might want to hold the card. Sometimes if it grades a 9, raw cards sometimes might sell for higher than a 9. You might want to crack the 9 out and sell the card raw. Now, don't lie to anyone and say this card could grade a 10 because it can't, but just, you don't, if someone doesn't ask, you don't have to tell them. And just, so you want to be looking at what the card's grade. Now, if the card grades a 10, it's obvious what to do. Just, keep it as a 10. But just getting your grades and knowing what you're looking at, especially, this is more for if you're sending cards to Beckett, because the way it works with Beckett is not every 9.5 is made equal. So, for example, right, if we just look at a card of Beckett here for a second. So, like, if you look at this card of CJ Stroud, right, you can see these subgrades. The stronger the subgrades, the more the card's going to sell for. So, for example, there's something in sports cards called a true gem. So, if all these subgrades were 9.5 or higher, the card would be considered a true gem. So, it would get like a 10 to 20% increase. As opposed to if it was like 3 9.5s and a 9, that's considered a min gem. Min gems won't do as much. This one's okay because it has a 10 subgrade but has a 9 surface. Like, this card is more desirable if instead of this 10 edges, it just had all 9.5s all the way around. Okay? And the way with Beckett, the way it works is 3 9.5s and a 9 is the minimum you need for the whole card to grade a 9.5. If you have 3 10s and a 9.5, then the whole card will grade a 10. If you have all 10s, then it would be considered a black label. What a black label is, just to show you, so this is like the top of the top when it comes to grading sports cards. This is extremely rare. It never happens. Honestly, it's never happened to me. I've gotten a handful of Beckett 10s, but never a black label. This is kind of what makes Beckett interesting. The Beckett 10 outsells a PSA 10 usually, and a black label really outsells a PSA 10. So with a black label, that's all 10s, but if this had all 3 10s and a 9.5, it would just be, let me just show you. Instead of telling. Beckett 10 Prism. I don't know. So you can see here, this card of Victor Wembanyama, for example, this has 3 10s and just a 9.5, which just means the card's a 10. Okay? As opposed to this one I just showed you, can see the label's black. Now this card is a black label, it would do like, I don't know, like 7, 8, 10 times what this card's going to sell for. Like, it does a lot. So that's kind of like interpreting your grades. With PSA, it's a lot simpler. It's a 10 or it's a 9 for the most part. And this is also important, right? Going to sell and maximizing the profits of the graded cards. So timing the market, right? So for example, let's look at like, let's look at Mr. Victor Wembanyama. And let's say this is a card that you bought, right? And you want to be able to maximize the market or maximize the timing. So like the way to do this is when you see it trending up, right? You can see it's up right here, and then it starts to trend down. This is actually trending down as it got closer to the season. I think because the market, there were too many 10s and it fucked up the market. But you want to be able to try to time the market so you're up here, right? Well, those cards are selling for about $1,000. Now, while you're down here, and this card's selling for about $800. And the way to do that is buying here, right, in June while it's low. You can see they take a nice little dip, boop, buy right here, and it starts to trend back up, and you want to sell it right around here, right? So you're buying low, selling high, and then also you're getting these cards graded. So not only are you like getting a nice little appreciation boost from timing the market correctly, but you're getting the card graded, which you should make money on regardless. And then I put in using auction sites. So I'm really talking about with like higher end cards. A lot of you guys watching this are probably not going to be doing this. This is the most important thing when it comes to selling cards, is building a reputation. And what I mean by this is, let's go back to this Wembanyama example, right? And let's say you're selling the card up here, and this card's about $1,000. Use social media, use an Instagram, use the platforms to sell the cards yourself, so you can beat people, build connections, build that database, build that relationship base with people. So in the future, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you keep doing these, you just have tons of people at your disposal. And when you go and sell the cards, don't be that asshole that wants every last penny, right? If this card's selling for about $1,000 up here and you paid $400 for it to get it graded, you don't need every last penny, right? Give someone a $50 discount. It'll sell much quicker. People will like you more, and you'll be that guy that's actually fair, because so many people in sports cards are not fair. They want every last little penny. They want a penny pinch. So this is a... I put a little conclusion here for you guys. I try to make this Google Doc as nice as possible. But hopefully this is a nice little step-by-step and explains to you the fundamentals, like buying cards, getting them graded, selling them. And it's a nice little guide to card grading. But any questions, let me know. Leave a comment wherever, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully that provided you some value, and I know it sounds funny, all those things I'm saying. It's like, duh, like, don't you want to evaluate the condition, and duh, like, don't you want to be buying the right types of cards? But it took me years and years to learn all that stuff I just showed you. However, what I would say to keep it basic, because I know I threw a lot of information at you in that little training, is this. The main things you want to care about, right? The condition. And when I say condition, right? And the condition is corners, right? Edges, centering, and surface. That's number one. Number two is buying the right liquid types of cards, right? So I have a bunch of other trainings on that. You could go and find it on my YouTube. And when I say liquid types of cards, I mean, for example, baseball, a very liquid card would be like Bowman Chrome, as opposed to like something like Topps Fire that's like harder to grade, not as liquid. You're not going to get the same margins. And also, the last main thing I would say, the takeaway you should get from what I just explained to you, is timing, okay? So the way the sports card market works is when a season starts, most guys go down in value. It's just how it goes, because people, they're hyped, they're inflated when a season's getting closer, and then it drops down in value. So just to show you an example, like if we go to market movers here, get rid of this, so reset. I'll give you a good example just to drive the point home. So like CJ Stroud, Silver, Prism, PSA 10, right? This is a good example. So, right, if we go in the past 90 days, you could see the season starts right around here. This card's worth about, low 800s, somewhere in that range. And once the season starts, well, CJ Stroud's having a good year. Not like an amazing year, but he's playing pretty solid. However, when this card was selling up here, even it got up to $1,000, it was inflated. It was hyped. And you could see it comes crashing down to what it should actually be worth. This card should actually be worth in this range, like the $500 to $600 range. And this is what you don't want to do, and what everybody does, is they buy the card up here raw, and they get it back from grading. Well, it's down here, and how are you supposed to make money if the card's fallen almost in half, right? You can't. But these are the big things I would say: knowing the condition, buying the right types of cards, and timing. If you get those three things correct, you'll do well for yourself. I promise. But hopefully this video provided you some value. And if you like this one, what I'll do is I'll throw another video up above my head over here. And it's a nice follow-up to what you learned here. I actually go on eBay and show you literally how to find cards, me evaluating the condition live and negotiating, actually buying cards live. I think it's very valuable and a nice follow-up to this video, but hopefully you enjoyed. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. I try to reply to all my comments in a weekly podcast I do and answer any of your guys' questions. But like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.